What did we actually just watch? Because whatever happened in Philadelphia on the 4th of July wasn't really football. It was 90 minutes of pushing, swinging, and cheap shots, French players getting scythed down away from the ball, elbows landing in ribs, a World Cup favorite being run into over and over like it was a parking lot scrap, not a round of 16 match. It was rough to sit through. And standing in the middle of it all, whistle in hand, one man watched every second of it happen and did nothing about it. France edged Paraguay 1-0. They're through to the quarterfinals, but hardly anyone left that stadium talking about the result, because the real headline was the mayhem on the field, and the official who was meant to control it but simply didn't. He was rated so poorly that L'Équipe, the French newspaper notorious for its brutal player ratings, gave him its lowest possible mark, a 1 out of 10. Their verdict ran just 4 words: he got almost everything wrong. On paper this looked like a straightforward last 16 clash, a tournament favorite against a scrappy South American side that had already knocked out Germany on penalties. In practice, it resembled a brawl with the occasional whistle blast thrown in. The man controlling that whistle, Ilgiz Tashkentov of Uzbekistan, spent the match behaving like someone who'd wandered onto the pitch by mistake. He's held FIFA status for 13 years to understand what a yellow card is for, and on this day, he decided not to use them. At least not against the team that earned them. Here's the number that tells the whole story. Paraguay committed somewhere around a dozen fouls, several of them wince-inducing, plus a stack of off-the-ball shoves that never even drew a whistle. Yellow cards received across 90 minutes, 0. Now hold that thought, because here's what turns this from sloppy into something almost deliberate. France picked up 3 cautions. Koné, Barcola, and Olise were all booked. So it wasn't that the referee forgot his cards existed. He clearly knew where they were. He just reserved them for the team on the receiving end of the punishment. Read that again. The side dishing out the elbows walked away clean. The side absorbing them collected 3 yellows. That's not simply lenient officiating, that's the whole framework flipped on its head. And it's worth listing exactly what he let go, because dark arts is too soft a phrase for this. Kubos went through Rubio with a challenge that had nothing to do with the ball. Cossés kicked out at Hakimi and Mbappé after losing the ball, a petty little swing of the boot. Galaza shoved a hand into Koundé's face, then later flung an arm across Mbappé as he ran in on goal. And most blatantly, Avalos dropped an elbow into Upamecano's stomach while Paraguay were chasing the match, an elbow to the ribs on the biggest stage in the sport. Every time, the referee's answer was the same: a shrug, play on, nothing. Even Galaza's gamesmanship got rewarded. When Olise tugged his shirt, Galaza hit the turf theatrically trying to get Olise booked, and it worked. The diver got the free kick, the victim got the card. The referee bought it every time from one side and never once from the other. The television pundits weren't gentle about it. Joe Hart called Paraguay's conduct an absolute disgrace and said he'd have pulled his own players off the pitch for it. Micah Richards called it embarrassing, noting the frustrating part: Paraguay were genuinely a solid defensive team and didn't need any of this. Thomas Hitzlsperger went furthest, saying that as a neutral you could have no respect for them, calling it worse than disgraceful. When 3 studio professionals are all reaching for stronger and stronger words to describe one match, it wasn't just feisty. It was rotten. Let's be fair for a moment, because lazy outrage isn't the goal here, and there's a legitimate counterargument. Paraguay didn't show up to entertain anyone. Their game plan was clear: sit deep, load the box with a back 5, frustrate the favorites, and try to drag it into extra time or penalties the way they had against Germany. And for long stretches it nearly worked. France didn't manage a shot until past the 20-minute mark, didn't hit the target until the 55th minute, and Paraguay's keeper, the hero of the Germany win, made save after save, including a brilliant stoppage-time double stop to deny Mbappé. Defensively they were organized and difficult to break down. Strip away the fouling, and they'd have gone home with real credit. The tragedy is they were good enough that they didn't need to play dirty, and they did anyway. But none of that excuses the man in the middle. A referee's whole job is drawing a line and enforcing it. Compare it to the Canada-Morocco match that same day, where Michael Oliver handed out 6 yellow cards before halftime, established control early, and watched the second half settle down as a result. That's what command looks like. This referee did the opposite, letting tension build, letting fouls pile up unpunished, letting players sense there'd be no consequence, until it spilled into post-match scuffles, bench-clearing insults, and Paraguay's Velasquez trying to confront French players after the final whistle. Matches turn like that because officials allow them to. Here's a detail that should bother you more. The official tally read 13 fouls for Paraguay and 11 for France, numbers that make it sound like a fairly even physical contest. It wasn't. That stat sheet is misleading by omission, since a mountain of Paraguay's fouls were never even flagged. And of the fouls he did register, only one side ever paid for them. The paper stats flattered him, watching the actual match condemned him. And the moment that decided the game says it all. In the second half, substitute Desire Du burst past two defenders and was chopped down in the box by Diego Gomez. A clear penalty. The referee waved play on, gave nothing. VAR had to intervene and effectively force the decision. Even after he finally pointed to the spot, Paraguay's players swarmed him to run down the clock while Velasquez scuffed up the penalty mark with his boot, forcing the referee to rebuild it before Mbappé could take the kick. Mbappé sent the keeper the wrong way, and France had their winner, a goal scored on a penalty their own referee had tried not to award. That penalty was Mbappé's 7th goal of the tournament, drawing him level with Messi in the race for the Golden Boot, and pushing him to 19 World Cup goals in 19 appearances, one behind Messi's all-time mark. In a way it summed up his whole afternoon: kicked, elbowed, hacked at, and provoked from minute one, and mostly just shrugging it off. Afterward he joked that Paraguay must have expected France to show up in tuxedos, and that France could play rough too when it needed to. Deschamps declined to criticize anyone directly, mentioned insults coming from the opposing bench, and admitted he'd told two of his biggest players to physically shield Mbappé late on because he feared he'd get taken out. On top of everything, this all played out in brutal heat. Kickoff temperature was recorded at 101 degrees Fahrenheit per 38 degrees Celsius, among the hottest World Cup matches on record, not far off the all-time high of 109 degrees Fahrenheit per 43 degrees Celsius set by Ireland versus Mexico in 1994. So while the referee ignored elbows, everyone on the field was also slowly roasting. Nobody walked away from this one happy, except maybe the VAR operator, who at least got to do something useful. France move on to face Morocco in the quarterfinals. The referee moves on to nothing. FIFA suspended him almost immediately, which is about as close to an admission as that organization ever gives that yes, it really was that bad. Ever seen an official talk himself out of a job that fast? Drop your worst refereeing memory below, and stick around for the quarterfinals.